Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Not Your Average Josh back here for another movie review. Today I'm reviewing the new Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 movie. By the time this is uploaded, I should have the second Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 movie up there as well. Along with the first one, I have a playlist on my channel. You can go check that out. This video will be in that playlist as well. But before I get into this review, I do want to say if you're watching this, I appreciate that very much. You can hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment as well if you have any thoughts on this movie or anything else you want to input. Hit that subscribe button as well if this is your first time watching any of my videos, or if you're a returning viewer as well. Any support for this channel, as I said, is very much appreciated. You can also follow me on TikTok and add me on Snapchat, where I will post content similar to this. But for the most part, my content will be here on this channel, Not Your Average Josh. But let's go ahead and get into this review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Still reeling from the loss of Gamora, Peter Quill rallies his team to defend the universe and one of their own, a mission that could mean the end of the Guardians if not successful. This is a movie I have been looking forward to for quite a while now, since of course the second Guardians movie came out. A lot has happened within the MCU since then. The second one came out before even Infinity War and Endgame happened. Of course, we've had a whole nother phase that has obviously been the most mixed out of any of the other Marvel phases. So a lot has happened, a lot of stuff going on. So, and it has also been, I think, about 6 years even since that second one was released. It's been a long time waiting. Of course, everything going on with James Gunn. There was a time where he got fired and then rehired. So there was a lot of that within it, as well as why this movie took so long to come out. But I've just been really looking forward to this movie. I'm still a bigger Marvel fan than DC, but I'm not one of those guys who really pick sides in a strong way. I want DC and Marvel to do good.
I just want to say, you know, can we all get along? Can we get along?
I'm not one of those guys that's like that, but I will say I have been disappointed, like a lot of people, with really Phase 4, especially since like No Way Home came out. Just been a lot of a really hit and miss. I was really hoping Doctor Strange and the Thor Love and Thunder movie was going to hit more than it did. I like Doctor Strange a little more than Thor Love and Thunder, but overall, just been a little more disappointed. Of course, Black Panther Wakanda Forever I thought was a little bit of a separate movie, if you say, because of everything going on with Chadwick unfortunately passing, and I think they did the best they could with that movie. It was more of a separate situation with that. With this movie, I had the most faith I've had in a movie since No Way Home came out in terms of the Marvel movies. James Gunn, a third movie, I knew he was going to put his all into this. I knew if he was writing and directing it, it was going to have his vision. And luckily, this movie did pretty much meet my expectations exactly how I wanted it to. I do still have the first Guardians over this one, but if you've seen my Guardians, the first movie review I have on this channel, I gave that movie such a high rating, more than I ever have. I just love that movie so much. I think that is one of the best MCU movies. So a pretty high bar for this movie to try and achieve, but overall, I thought James Gunn did a really good job with this. Everyone that's involved, all the actors, everyone behind the scenes, this really did feel like a Guardians movie. This movie is very much about Rocket and dealing with everything, his past, how he came to be, who he is, and then just really dealing with this emotional story with him, the High Evolutionary, who I will say right off the bat, I thought he is definitely... he's right on that upper tier of Marvel villains for me. I don't think he's the best of the best, like with Thanos and Killmonger and like a Loki. But I do think he is very good, very convincing. I know how some people have been complaining about him yelling too much. And I will say, I already had kind of that thought going into it. I heard a few people complaining about that. It didn't really bother me too much. I understood why he was yelling so much. But there were times within the movie where you could kind of guess, like, okay, he's probably about to yell again at something, and it never felt like anything that was unnecessary or unwarranted. Like, I understood why he was this really aggressive, constantly yelling character, because he has just played himself as a very unhinged guy from the very beginning. And while there isn't necessarily an explanation as to why he is that way, he just kind of is what he is, and just everything with his character, you know, the torturing of the animals in this it's really hard to watch. Like, there was plenty of moments in this. A lot of the flashbacks when we see Baby Rocket with his little friends and when he's in the little cells that they're in, the little animal cages. It is horrible to watch. And the movie does a great job of really making you dislike, practically hate, and most people will hate the character High Evolutionary. I thought Chuck Wooji as the High Evolutionary, I really know him the most for Peacemaker. I thought he was really good in that. Really playing, obviously, just a completely different character in this, really just ultra aggressive villain here. I thought he did such a good job. He really commits to this, had a commanding presence every time he was on the screen, and really was genuinely scared for Rocket and other characters. Also in this movie, you bring in a new character along with High Evolutionary, Adam Warlock, who isn't really working with him necessarily. He's obviously with the sovereign people. There's been definitely a little bit of divide, I think, on this character, probably more than anything with this movie. And for me, honestly, I really did enjoy Will Poulter here as Adam Warlock. I understand people that are really more into the comics, know the character a lot more. They were a little bit put off by maybe some of the humorous moments with the character, that he was more serious in the comics. And for me, as a person who isn't as into the comics in terms of knowing every little detail, I have read my fair share of comics, but I'm definitely still way behind when it comes to it in terms of, like, I'd say, the experts. For me, I really did enjoy the direction they went with this. I thought for this movie, for this Guardians trilogy, ending it off here, I thought he served his purpose. The little creature he had with him, I don't remember the name of the little creature, him always concerned with that creature, I thought it was really funny, and it added some nice little moments with this character. I will say overall, though, if I did have a negative with him, I didn't necessarily give a shit about him at all. He definitely didn't necessarily have to be in this. Like, he could have been a different character other than Adam Warlock, and it could have served the same purpose. So I can see where the criticisms lie with that, but for me overall, I did enjoy him for the most part. And then, of course, just your entire group of Guardians here, capping off what this version of Guardians is going to be. It might not even be another Guardians of the Galaxy movie, or if it will be, it might be years down the road. I thought it was a satisfying end. The way this movie starts with Peter Quill drinking himself basically into a slumber, and then immediately you have Adam Warlock coming in, searching for Rocket, for the High Evolutionary, try and get him, bring him back, and of course that's really the whole storyline of this movie. And I really did like where everyone was at with this. Of course, if you saw the holiday special, I thought that really set up everything nice. You get, of course, the reveal in that Mantis is Peter's sister. I thought they were going to actually touch on that a little more in this movie, though the fact they revealed it in the holiday special, they kind of didn't really play on that as much as I thought they would. Not that they need to dive deep into it, but I thought there was a little bit of like, they just kind of still seemed like they had the same relationship. Mantis and Peter Quill, Mantis and Drax, their interaction in this movie. James Gunn brings the jokes in this movie again, but I thought it was all within the story. Nothing ever felt out of place. Pretty much the same as a lot of James Gunn humor in his movies. It all felt very appropriate. Never felt like they were throwing in too much here. Like, I know some people had an issue with the second Guardians that I did at times as well, but I thought in this one, the jokes, for the most part, hit. And that is definitely one of the most important things, but also it never felt like it was too oversaturated. I thought there was still a great balance here. The content is so heavy in this movie. I thought the jokes were really needed. It all felt like something that the characters would do. Like, it didn't feel like, oh, they're just throwing a joke in here to have a nice moment of levity. It all felt like it was natural and something that would happen here. We had some kind of emotional moments with Drax here in this movie, really discovering a little bit more of who he is. We haven't necessarily ever really dived deep into his backstory. We just know a little bit about his wife and kid being killed, of course, at the hands of Thanos. You never really dive deep into his pain. I thought they definitely touched on that more than I thought they would in terms of that. And of course, where Gamora is in this movie. I really didn't expect her to be with the Ravagers here, running with them. Of course, she's a different version of Gamora, you know, obviously not the Gamora that we knew. And that is very bittersweet. They really play on that throughout this movie. The first half of this movie, I did think that, like, Peter Quill was being a little bit pathetic. I'm not gonna lie. Like, there was just a few moments where he was just like constantly just continuing with Gamora, like, no, you don't understand. We really had a good time together. It's like Gamora's trying to be like, it really felt a little bit uncomfortable at times. Like, I was like, okay, I'm on Star-Lord. Like, you need to get over this, bro. Like, I get it, that pain. And look, I get it as someone who's been through a pretty tough breakup. Yeah, it's tough, man, to get over love. But I just thought there was a moment like, come on. This is obviously not that same Gamora, and I just honestly was feeling bad for Gamora a little bit because she's in this situation where she's a different person. Like, this is not who she was. But they have a really nice resolution with that, though, in the end. Gamora really just rough around the edges from the beginning of this movie, kind of how Nebula used to be. I really liked the character arc and change in Nebula as well, really becoming a little bit softer and just really ingratiating herself with the team now, being a part of the Guardians truly in this movie. I really did like that, man, to see where her character's gone, how fucked up her past was. When the crew finds out what Rocket went through as a little raccoon, she really makes a comparison that is actually worse, it seemed, than what she went through with, of course, Thanos torturing her anytime she failed growing up. And that's where the butting of heads with Gamora and Nebula happened. And I really liked the moments that they had as well, Gamora and Nebula, in this, the sister moments, where, again, this different version of Gamora, but they're still sisters. And you still get that, you feel that connection in this movie. And I just thought, really, man, everyone was really good in this. All the actors that were involved, the directing style, there were still some moments in this movie that felt fresh, felt different than we had seen in the previous Guardians movies. A lot of people are going to be talking about the Don't Sleep Till Brooklyn action scene. That was just brilliantly directed, I thought. I've heard a lot of people say one of their favorite MCU action scenes. I wouldn't necessarily go that far with me. I thought it was really entertaining, but it wasn't something that necessarily took me to that level. But man, just the camera work in that scene, the way that all the Guardians were fighting at once, these enemies in this hallway scene, and the way the camera would move throughout the fight scene, it just felt so different and unique, like you were being just taken through the fight. It was just a really cool way to do that. You're always wondering, like, no character is safe in this. Throughout it, I was just constantly like, oh my God, is this guy gonna die? She gonna die? You know, what's gonna happen? Rocket? Like, you're so worried constantly. And I felt the stakes more in this movie than I definitely have probably since No Way Home. And of course, you had your first MCU F-bomb, which is really cool. I honestly thought they had put an F on them in there throughout. I was really surprised actually that none of the MCU movies even used the F word once. And the way they did it, it was done in a funny way. I thought it could have been really cheesy and over dramatic if they had put it in like the end of the movie or something where they're like, yeah, I'm gonna fuck you up. Just do it in a comedic way where you're gonna get a huge laugh out of the theater. And I actually had already seen the clip, the bleeped out version before I went to see this movie. And so I was already kind of expecting where it was gonna come, but still, it was a fun time. Where all the characters leave off, you have this sort of send-off for a good portion of our characters in this movie, and it's very bittersweet. It's like, you look back on, you're like, man, you really think man, how long ago it was since the first one came out, the journey they've been on through their own movies, and of course the Avengers movies. It was really just satisfying. I do think for me it is better than the second Guardians movie, but the first one for me, I don't have any negatives with that first Guardians movie. I just love that movie. I do still think that Ronan the Accuser is a very underrated villain within the MCU. High Evolutionary is definitely better. I would say he's definitely the best villain within this trilogy. But there's just something about the magic of that first movie that I just don't know if can be topped. It is a really good movie, and I just had so much fun with it. The music that you just know is going to be in these movies is there. Doesn't disappoint. The story, the humor, the heart that is with this Guardians movie. Some of the action sequences still leave you in awe. That little brief moment of awe where you're like, oh wow, okay, superhero movies can still amaze you in certain ways. At least that's how I felt with this. And so I think it definitely left a little bit of promise in this time where the comic book movies are taking a little bit of a decline in terms of the anticipation and the hype for them. I think this movie coming out definitely shows you that, hey, you can still make a good story in the comic book genre. It doesn't feel recycled like it's been used before. It doesn't feel like something that just feels old and tired. You can still make a fresh story in a comic book setting. Two characters I haven't really touched on yet. Groot as Vin Diesel. He has a moment in this movie. It is definitely a little bit of a spoiler, so warning right here. You actually get to hear Groot say a word in this movie, or say words in this movie for the first time without just saying, I am Groot. That was really cool. I didn't expect that, and I thought within the moment as well, it made sense, and I liked it. It was really cool. Where you leave off with Gamora, the last line she says to Peter in this, I won't say if you haven't seen it, just in case, but that was really great. And then I thought Cosmo, I didn't really touch on how they didn't really use Cosmo as much as I thought going into this movie. I will say I thought Cosmo was going to be with the characters a lot more, but she has enough screen time. The dog has enough screen time. I really did enjoy the moment they gave her as well. She has a nice moment with Kraglin. It was appropriate. They didn't necessarily need to be in it anymore or anything. I'm just happy to have seen an MCU movie that really just was overly satisfying. That is my main thoughts, though. I'm going to give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 an 8.5 out of 10. Very satisfying conclusion to this trilogy. James Gunn now going, obviously, to work with DC and everything. A nice send-off for him. In terms of everything with Marvel and how it goes from here, it's going to be interesting. Of course, you got everything, all the drama involved with Jonathan Majors and Kang. Where are they going to go from here? A lot is going to depend on how the Marvels does. And of course, if you know anything about this business, there's a writer's strike going on, WGA writer's strike in Hollywood right now. It could go on for quite a while, and it could affect not just, of course, the comic book stuff, but just really a lot of movies. So that'll be a huge thing as well. There's a lot really up in the air right now, and the Marvels is definitely going to be a huge moment, I think, in terms of where does Marvel start really declining here? You know, the MCU, does it start really declining? And I hope not. I really am looking forward to the Marvels, but I will say not as much as I was this Guardians 3 movie. So it'll be very interesting to see where things go from here. But in terms of just this trilogy, I thought it was a nice send-off, very satisfying. I don't really have any major negatives with this movie. it still doesn't quite get to the highs of the first one, but I will say for the most part, I was just genuinely satisfied. Just a really good movie here. What are your guys' thoughts? Did you enjoy this movie? Maybe not so much. Do you care about the Guardians movies? Are you more of a DC person than Marvel? Whatever your thoughts are, leave a comment below, and also hit that like button if you did enjoy this video, and you can also hit that subscribe button if this is your first time watching any of my videos, or if you're a returning viewer as well. It's very much appreciated. You can also follow me on TikTok and add me on Snapchat, where I will post content similar to this, but for the most part, my content will be here on this YouTube channel, Not Your Average Josh. So again, I appreciate all the support. Be looking for more videos very soon. I will talk to you guys later.